We have a guest every month, and I'm very glad to say we've got Stephen Rothberg with us. This morning, I'm going to say to you, good morning.
Yes. Good morning. It's 10 a.m., so it's not too bad.
You're doing okay. Whereabouts are you based, Stephen?
I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota. For those who can kind of picture the map of the U.S., we're right in the center, right at the top, so kind of on the Canadian border.
Fantastic. And you know us Brits, we all like to talk about the weather. So what's the weather like today?
Summer is struggling to hold on. The leaves have all changed. They're yellows and reds. It's a beautiful autumn, or as Americans would say, fall. And but winter's coming. But I grew up in Canada, so I like winter, but I don't like -40.
No, so you're probably okay where you are. You're not going to get too far down that side. So topic today then, we've been looking forward to this for a little while. For those that don't know me, I'm Angela Cripps, the MD of the Recruiting Gym, and we identify these wonderful people to talk to you every month. And this came about a couple of months ago, actually, and we've got a connection with Hung Lee as well, I noticed. But the AI topic is everywhere, and we've done a couple of weeks on the daily workout. We've had a couple of questions come through on Ask the Coach, but we wanted to have a focused and this topic about the impact of generative or other AI on the recruitment advertising. And it does tend to be advertising that tends to come up the most when we're having these conversations. So let's just start from the beginning. If you have a question, please feel free to either put it in the question if you're in Crowdcast, or in the chat if you're in LinkedIn. I know LinkedIn's not our friend this week. I'm hoping it's okay. If not, come over to Crowdcast. We'll see you here. But let's go back to that beginning. So what is artificial intelligence to start with, Stephen?
Yeah, there are tons of different definitions, and I think it is good that you and I sort of start off to agree what it is we're talking about, because some people, especially up until about a year ago, people thought of artificial intelligence as like an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where the robots are coming to kill us. That is one kind of artificial intelligence. But what we're talking about in HR, TA, and then even further down that funnel, recruitment advertising, it's really about computers making decisions that traditionally have required human intelligence. So making inferences, where you don't have all the information, you look at what you've got, and you kind of make a best guess. Some people would call it intuition. Other people would call it experience. Some other people might call it wisdom. But whatever it is, it's not this clear, if this, then that. It's more about what some people used to call fuzzy logic. It's like, I think this is what should happen. And the advancement that's allowed artificial intelligence to take place is the processors that computers can now look at far more data, far more quickly than they could even just 5 or 10 years ago. So that's kind of why we're at the place that we are now.
Because it has been around for sort of 5-10 years, isn't it? It came into my world in March, and I was calling it ChatGTP.
Yeah.
For a little while. Now I've got idea. Do it in order of the alphabet, Angela, and you'll be fine. GPT. Fuzzy logic. Actually, it's World Menopause Day. That resonates with me. Most days I get a fuzzy logic at some point where brain fog and just can't see the wood for the trees. But actually then that makes sense. All that clearing with that processing and all of that data available, the fuzzy bit has disappeared, hasn't it?
Yeah, the artificial intelligence, I think most people in that field, from what I've read, they'll trace its origins back to the 50s. The 1950s. But like you said, I think you said something to the effect of like it hasn't been usable or something to that effect. And then it's really just been like the last maybe 10 years. And I think that's right. I think that the vast majority of us have been using AI for years, whether it's 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, we can quibble about the exact date. But if you use this website, you've probably heard of it, called Google, then you've been using it. And you've been using it for years. You just didn't know it. And I think AI done properly is like that. You don't need to know that a website is programmed in PHP in order for that website to be usable. The technology should be invisible to you. It should be transparent if it's good. But as soon as you start to like, how is this coded, or what do I need to put in here? That's where there's a user problem. And then some of that we're starting to see in talent acquisition, where individual users, the talent acquisition professionals, the employment branding people, whatever, they're being asked to do too much, like an engineer would do. And so when these products become much more user friendly, like sending an email, like jumping on a Zoom call, that's when I think we're going to see some real significant uptake.
Now, you mentioned there about talent acquisition. Good time to interject to actually share your background in all of this. If you could give everyone a little insight into your work and how you got here.
So, yeah, no problem. Completely accidentally. I have no formal HR or TA training. I'm the founder and chief visionary officer of College Recruiter. It's a job search site for students and recent grads of colleges and universities. We're global. We help about 13 million find what we call great new careers a year. So early careers, 0 to 5 years experience. We sit at the intersection of early careers, performance-based pricing, cost per click, cost per application, and programmatic. And it's that programmatic piece that causes us to pay really close attention to artificial intelligence, because there's a huge amount of AI being used or being developed to make advertising far more efficient and far more effective. And again, done right, the TA people will just see better results. They won't know why. They shouldn't have to care why. It should just happen.
I love it when you get a bit of tech that just works. My post on LinkedIn on Monday morning was the top 20 AI companies at the moment. And the majority of the reaction was, wow, I didn't know there were so many. These are just the top 20. That's not all.
Oh, yeah. If you had spent a few hours, you probably could have like come up with 2,000 of them. They might not be good, but you could come up with a lot of them.
Yeah, so let's stick with the top ones that are doing good at the moment. Now, I did want to ask you a question around what's the difference between this and generative AI?
Yeah. So what generative AI really became mainstream about 11 months ago, November 2022. OpenAI released sort of into the wild for ordinary people like you and me a product called ChatGPT, and probably one of the worst named products in history. I'm guessing that it will end up with a different name, but there are other products that are somewhat similar to it too. What it does that was so revolutionary, and why so many people have embraced it and try to figure out like how to use this, how to make their lives better, whether it's at work or home or whatever, is that it's really the first popular product. There have been others, but not as popular. It's the first popular product that really understands and is able to predict language. So when you used to go to Google and run a search and say, show me the top 20 AI companies, Google would use artificial intelligence to understand what you were saying, and then it would create a list for you. What generative AI can do is it can write you a story or an article. It can come back to you in ordinary language. You can write a paragraph or 12, give that to OpenAI, to ChatGPT, and it will understand that in natural language. So it's able to predict if I see these 6 words, these are probably going to be the next 6 after it that would make sense to this user or to users that are asking for this kind of information.
So we see that all the time with Google, don't we? You start typing and it guesses.
Yes, that's a great
as well.
That's a great example, that autofill in Gmail or Google searches that I think we've all become used to over the last 10 years. That's AI. We just didn't think of it that way.
No, we just thought that's what
So
everyone else has typed before us. These are the most things that people have typed. I assumed that was the top of the list, but now I know actually no, it's working out. And again, based on what
it's
people want to know.
yeah, and it's definitely kind of both. It's Angela has a history of searching for this, and so do these other 12,000 people that share a lot of characteristics with her, some more, some less. This is my best guess as to the information she's looking for. And all done faster than you can blink your eye.
That's what always threw me when I first started using Google. It's like, yeah, here's 10,300,000 results on 0.16 seconds. You'd think, what? Surely not. But
yeah.
Pick it up from there. Okay, so that's the reason then why we've been hearing so much more this last year. Because of the one that and everyone suddenly got really excited about it. If we think about it, we're UK, you're USA. So how many recruiters, whether they're in-house or their agency, are really using this to its advantage, would you say?
It's a great question. If you talk to the vendors, they'll tell you something like 75%. Okay. And if anybody has ever lived next to a pig farm, they would know the smell for that set with that 75. It's BS. There's just, well, it wouldn't be B if it's a pig farm. But anyway, the number of or percentage of recruiters that are using ChatGPT or some other generative AI product is unknown. Nobody really knows that number. Now you can survey and extrapolate. The methodology I've seen is just crap. The vendors are grossly overstating the percentage that are using it. If you've ever used it, are you a user? If you used it once for 3 minutes 8 months ago, are you a user? I saw one article that came out about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, just before the Job Boards Connect conference last week in London. And the person who wrote it basically said something like 50% of candidates are using AI to help them write their resume. And I think you and I are going to get into that. Well, when you actually went and looked at the articles and then what the articles were referencing, what it said was that 50% of candidates believe that they might use AI. There's a huge difference between are and might. Yeah, so let's separate there. Clearly, it's a significant percentage. If I had to guess on a weekly basis how many recruiters are using generative AI, my guess is it's about 25%. If you include Google search results, Bing search results, which they're starting to show you generative AI, if you include that, it's probably more like 75%. But I don't think that's what we're really talking about. I think we're talking about going to ChatGPT or a product like that, maybe built into some kind of HR system, and help me write this job description. Is this resume copy paste a good match for this job description? Copy paste. What is this candidate missing? Here's an old job description. Can you write it so that it's more conversational? Things like that. I'm guessing we're talking something like 25%, probably on a weekly basis.
And actually, those people in the marketplace and buying recruitment advertising and using job boards, you talked about Job Connect last week. It makes sense to try and get the most out of it, but there's the backlash that's happening at the moment with people saying, well, I can spot a job ad or I can spot a CV that's been written by AI at 100 paces, and I'm wondering if that's true or not. What's your thoughts on that?
I agree with you, but I'll take the conversation, if you don't mind, in a slightly different direction. Who cares? When was the last time any of us hired somebody and that we wanted to hire them into a role where they would be paid to write cover letters or CVs, right? You're hiring that. I mean, there are some of those people, but the vast majority of recruiters are hiring engineers. They're hiring people to work at a cash register in a retail shop, or to flip hamburgers, or to be a nurse. How is it relevant whether a nurse used ChatGPT to write her CV? Wouldn't you want to hire a nurse who embraces technology to make himself or herself more efficient? I mean, isn't that a good thing?
I
Shouldn't we
love
be
that point.
rewarding that?
Yeah, and you're right. I worked in 5 different sectors as a recruiter, and only one of them was commercial, and therefore secretaries and marketing people, I expected them to be able to produce a good CV, but everyone else, I helped them. I was adapting it, I was changing it, I was suggesting all the ideas. It took forever working with them as well. So actually, yeah, if there's something that can do it in a nanosecond, then why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah. So like I'm a Gen Xer. I'm 57. Calculators really kind of came into existence from a practical standpoint the generation before me. Kids who went to school in like the 60s,
Had slide
right?
rules at our school.
They could use calculators,
Yeah.
but by and large, the schools prohibited them.
Yeah.
Okay, fair
You weren't allowed
enough.
it in the exam.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I started school in the 70s, and by the 80s is when I was in high school, university, etc. By that time, in the 80s, my teachers, my professors had understood that calculators are here to stay and that they make everybody more efficient. And right, they help to bring up the bottom. If you can't figure out what 3 times 7 is, right, a calculator is going to help you with that. They also help to elevate the top, because people who can do 57 times 611 like that, I can't. But the people who could do that could then spend less time doing calculations and more time doing analysis. So the better teachers, the better professors started to say, go for it, Angela, go for it, Stephen. You want to use a calculator for your assignments in the exams? Good, because what I care about is your analysis. I don't care that you can do grunt work. That's for the calculator. We don't need you to do grunt work anymore. That's what generative AI is like now.
Yeah.
We don't need somebody to spend 7 hours writing a job description. You can take a job description from, Indeed and say, our position is similar to this, except for this, this, and this, rewrite it and do it in the voice of Shakespeare. And it will give that back to you in about 15 seconds. That's your first draft. That's not the final one that you post to your ATS or that you post to College Recruiter or Indeed or LinkedIn, but that might save you 2, 3, 4 hours of writing. And now you can put it into your voice, clean up a few of the inaccuracies, what people call hallucinations, things like that, and make it a better product. So in an hour, you can get done what you used to get done in, say, 5, 6, 7 hours. Yeah. Well, now what are you going to do with the rest of your time? One thing that recruiters can do is what they always have wanted to do, which is spend more time with candidates, at least some recruiters. And so don't spend as much time with the grunt work, spend more time where you can add more value. And that's what excites me about AI. There's stuff that we can talk about that scares me too, but that's another story.
Yeah, we'll come on to that. And I did have a bit of a flashback while you were talking there, because I heard my old maths tutors saying, yeah, you're not allowed calculators, and that old adage, well, you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket all the time.
Bullshit.
So again, how wrong can we be? We don't know what's going to happen and what's going to come through. So those type of challenges, I really hope we've learned throughout time, and it is about embracing what's out there. We definitely don't want to lose the human element. And I've got Katrina Collier shouting at me in my ears here saying it's the robot-proof recruiter. So if we can use it, and actually I will give Katrina a shout out. I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, but
yeah,
she put a post out saying, I've reached out to this person, thanking them for the letter that they wrote me, saying it's obvious they wrote it themselves and really appreciate the time. And it's a lovely crafted letter, this, that, and the other. And thank God it's not AI. And they wrote back saying, actually, it was AI. So she put it out there. She said, look, hands up, I didn't spot it. So those people say, oh, I can spot it from a mile off. It's the draft, isn't it? It's the start. Yeah. It's the creativity that gets you going. I need that sometimes. I like working with people that are very creative, because they come up with ideas. I can then craft it and move it forwards. And that's what AI is for me. It's that spark of inspiration. It goes, oh God, that's a great idea. Right, now take it and move it forward instead. So let's talk about the worrying bits then. What are you worried about with regards to where we're going?
You know, I think that most of us, or probably all of us in some ways, are inherently lazy. We always look for shortcuts. What's the path of least resistance? One of the things that I worry about with AI is that people will fail to understand that it's just another tool in the tool bucket, and that they'll become too reliant on it. So we've talked a few times here about job descriptions and CVs being written by AI, and the importance of that being your first draft, not your final product. So at least with today's technology, if you write a job description using AI and then don't really look at it and edit it, I'm not talking about changing every word, but you're probably going to make half a dozen or 10 tweaks to it, whether it's a job description or whether it's a CV. If you don't, I think you do end up with a product that's bad. Now, also to be clear, a lot of these AI products that produce content, producing written content. There are also loads of AI products out there that generate video. We use an AI product called Pictory AI to generate short videos. We'll take blog articles, basically take the headlines, feed that in, and it comes up with related short little videos. And then we post those to YouTube Reels, which is Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, just to drive traffic.
Pictory, did you say?
Pictory, yeah. P as in Peter, ICTORY.ai.
Yeah.
Very, very user friendly. Once you kind of maybe invest an hour into it, then it's very easy to use, and so you can generate really quick videos with audio, voiceover, whatever you want, in an hour or less, rather than days of time. But if you just let the AI do it, it's going to come up with a horrible result. Yeah, I see the link. That's exactly right. It's properly spelled. The hallucination part that people will talk about, for those of the viewers who don't know what that is, that's where the AI is just kind of making stuff up. There's no malice there. Some people are like, oh, AI tricked me. It's like, no, it doesn't have consciousness yet. It's not trying to trick you.
I've got an example wrong. Yeah, Greg Savage at the beginning of the year was sort of exploring it. If you don't know, Greg Savage, been in the recruitment industry over 40 years. We've got his My Life In on our YouTube channel. We'll get the link in there. But he said, okay, well, let's see how this works, and said, tell me about Greg Savage. So they knew he got the right one and all about him. Okay, tell me the top 10 jokes that Greg Savage has said. Not one of them has he ever said. It just made it up based on what it knows about Greg Savage and maybe the type of jokes he would say. But yeah.
Well, okay, so I'll challenge you that I'm joking about this. But if you know Greg, you'll know that some of his jokes might not be suitable in all environments. And so it may have come up with a few jokes that he actually did tell that he would not want to tell in the presence of grandmothers. And so maybe there was like some denial. I'm just kidding. But the one of the biggest fears of AI, and it's kind of going back to that I had, and I think a lot of people still have and will continue to have. My fear has been reduced somewhat with it, is the impact that AI will have on people's ability to work, on is it going to cause massive unemployment, either in certain sectors or overall? And one of the nice things about my role at College Recruiter is I'm quite literally paid to kind of take a step back and look out at what's happening in different industries, look out at what's happened historically and how that might enlighten us as to what's happening now and in the future, and try to make some guesses to predict where do we need to be as a company a year from now, 5 years from now, et cetera. So one of the analogies that I came across for AI, that the more I think about it, the more I'm convinced this is the best analogy, is the cotton gin. I wrote a blog article on College Recruiter about it. The cotton gin was invented.
Cotton gin.
Cotton gin. Yeah, like cotton, like your clothes.
Yeah,
like
cotton gin.
cloth,
That is what I heard. Okay.
And gin, like that lovely British beverage.
Yeah.
The cotton gin was a machine invented by an American. You'll have to forgive him anyway. In the late 1700s. And what it basically did is it automated the removal of seeds from cotton. So the US, most of the cotton in that era, early 1800s, was grown on southern plantations, planted, picked, processed by slaves. Okay, horrible. No need to like sugarcoat that in any way. The cotton gin, when it was invented, some people thought this is going to end slavery. We won't need as many slaves because this does it way more efficiently. Sadly, it had the opposite effect. What it did is it made the cost of cotton much lower. You could produce, with the same manpower, the same number of seeds, way more cotton for the same money. It increased the need for labor because suddenly cotton became a more valuable product. Cost went down. It's like, why does McDonald's sell way more hamburgers? If you can buy a hamburger for £3 instead of across the street for 10, you're going to buy more hamburgers from McDonald's because it's roughly a third of the cost. In our employment markets, fortunately, the UK and US no longer have slavery. There is still slavery in some areas of the world. But if the cost of a recruiter writing and posting jobs drops, it becomes more economical for a company to hire that recruiter, or a second one, or a 20th. And same thing in factories, same thing in retail shops, same thing with journalists. If we can produce more for the same cost, then just like supply demand goes up. You see more demand for that product because the cost comes down.
Well, we've got so many open jobs anyway that we need that opportunity to be able to do that.
If a nurse can take care of 10 patients instead of 3, it becomes easier for the national health system to hire more nurses. They get a bigger bang for their buck. So I'm not at all convinced that AI is going to result in massive unemployment across the board or in individual sectors. I think what it's going to do is really improve our standards of living and actually increase the demand for people.
And what about companies' sort of products or business models? How is it going to impact on that then as to their strategies?
Yeah, so similarly, kind of going back to the whole recruitment advertising discussion, the viewers are probably like, what the heck does a cotton gin have to do with recruitment advertising? And my answer is everything.
No, I like analogies like that. You can visualize it so much easier.
So if using ChatGPT or some other tool, Textio, whatever the product is, can help you write a better job description, and if the candidates writing CVs can use those tools to write a better CV, inevitably what you're going to see right away is a better match. You're going to have companies getting more candidates and a higher quality of candidate, a better match applying to jobs. That means that those companies don't have to spend as much money on recruitment advertising and some of the other inputs, as many people posting to social media, as many executive recruiters or agencies, as the Brits would call them, the cost of recruiting people will go down. That means that it's more economical for you to spend money on recruitment advertising. You're going to get a bigger bang for your buck. So there are job boards, recruitment marketplaces that are freaking out over this, that if AI comes and if we suddenly are sending 10 times as many candidates to employers and they're hiring people at a much higher rate, why would they spend as much money with us? The answer is because it's going to be cheaper. Your product is more valuable to them. So they're going to want more of it, not less of it.
So I don't know whether this is relevant or not, or whether I've made this link and it's totally wrong, but it was about 2 years ago that the job boards suddenly all increased their prices by a considerable amount, some doubling.
In the UK, yeah.
Yeah.
The 3 or 4 leading job boards in the UK, yeah.
And I'm wondering if it was that knowledge of AI coming in that they suddenly thought, wait a minute, we need to go way higher here because they're going to bring us back down again. You know, going high.
I understand where you're going. I've had discussions with the leaders at those job boards, and what they said to me was that the UK was coming out of COVID, and there was a massive increase in the demand for talent. A lot more employers were advertising, but there was not a corresponding increase in supply. There were not a lot more candidates who were looking for work.
No,
so you
we
had
lost 1 million because of Brexit.
Yeah,
well,
and then Brexit, and also just like with COVID, hundreds of thousands of people left the workforce and have not returned.
Yeah.
One thing we forget about with COVID is that if you've got long-term COVID, you probably have a family member or two who are taking care of you, part-time or full-time. So that also has removed people from the labor force, and we probably will never see them again. It's like in the military, if you wound a soldier, it takes 4 soldiers to get you on a stretcher and take you to a hospital. That's 5 soldiers for wounding 1. And that's kind of some of the stuff that COVID did. So what those job boards said to me, like, Total Jobs and Reed and whatever, is not their words, but basically we have the same supply of candidates or similar, far greater number of employers, so we can charge them more. Some of those employers, if we charge more, won't advertise. That's okay, because we'll have fewer employers advertising. That will bring it back into equilibrium. Any recruiter that's upset about an increase in a job, how much it costs to post a job, should switch to cost per click or cost per application, because you don't need to run a job for 30 days and get 200 applications in order to fill a role. You need probably 5 or 10. And so with cost per click, cost per application, whether it's through us, Reed, whoever, you can basically turn off your ad as soon as you've hit that number. Some ads, you might have to spend £300 to get the desired number of applicants, and some you might only need to spend 10. So why are you always spending 200?
Yeah.
Put your money where it's actually having an effect. The vast majority of larger job boards, Total Jobs, Reed, College Recruiter, LinkedIn, Indeed, etc., they're all doing performance-based advertising, either solely or at least in part, like a hybrid model, and they're all using AI to optimize that to some degree.
This is where we've suddenly realized, we've been immersed in AI for quite a long period of time. We just weren't aware of it. So I'm wondering what's coming next then. Have you got an insight at all into what's the next stage for us all?
Yeah, with respect to recruitment advertising?
Yeah, or recruitment in general in relation to AI?
Yeah. So one thing that we've seen, the US in many areas of recruitment is years behind what you see in the UK and in the EU. Like employment branding, painting a picture of what it's like to work here. You guys are way better at that. We're more like, we're giving you a paycheck, work here. And somehow, for whatever reason, that just doesn't resonate with a lot of people. The US is further ahead, probably 2 years, when it comes to performance-based pricing, cost per click, cost per application, and programmatic, but the UK is rapidly catching up. Canada is as well, the EU is as well, the rest of the world is basically, what's that? What I definitely think is happening is we're about to see a real change in the number of applications per job opening. And if recruiters think that they're being bombarded now by a lot of irrelevant applications, hold on to your hats, because 6 to 12 months from now, it is going to be a tsunami. If you are receiving 20 applications now and 2 of them are good, you're about to receive 100 and 3 of them will be good.
And
Do
what's
you
your
have
reason behind that?
There are the AI products specifically targeted to candidates are rapidly growing in minority. There's a small but rapidly growing minority of candidates that are using these. So they used to use, we used to complain about like one-click apply and how candidates would go to Indeed or wherever, see a job posting, click apply, and their CV gets sent, okay? It might take a candidate 15 to 30 seconds to do that, right?
Great.
So in an hour, they could easily apply to 100 jobs. What if they could apply to 100 jobs in a minute? What if they could apply to 1,000 jobs in a minute? How many jobs do you think a candidate who doesn't really understand what happens on the company's end, nor should they have to understand that? All they care about is getting a paycheck so they can pay their rent. We are about to be massively bombarded by increased applications, and employers can complain about it, and they can say it shouldn't happen this way, or they can do something about it. At the Job Boards Connect conference last week, one of the speakers, Hilda, I'm blanking on her last name, but she works for, I think it's called African Jobs Network. She's, I think, their general manager, managing director.
We'll find her. Yeah.
And she's awesome. So she spoke about how in most of Africa, the problem is very much reversed, where you'll get 2,000 people trying to apply to a job. Job boards in Africa reverse the model. Rather than employers paying to advertise, candidates pay. But what they've done to solve the problem of too many candidates applying to a small number of jobs, and who wants to get 2,000 applications if you want to hire one person, is that they do, and I think this is a takeaway for the recruiters on the list, every single candidate goes through the same assessment. The assessments are scientific validated, not Myers-Briggs or something like that, but they're predictive of are you going to be a productive employee? And the ones that rise to the top, maybe the top 5%, they are offered the opportunity to apply.
Without
assessment. Correct. No, with pay. To sort of get into the system, you need to pay. They're all assessed. The ones that have the best assessment, they get to apply. So the employer might get 5 or 10 or 20 applications, and everybody is of high quality. That's what I think is about to happen in the UK and in the US.
That's going to be really interesting, because in 1974, the Employment Agencies Act, we outlawed that, because that's where we got the cowboy reputation right from the beginning. So if you're not aware of our history here in the UK, we used to charge candidates to apply for jobs. And of course, then there were agencies that were set up that would just have all these fake jobs. People would pay them money and, oh, no, you didn't get through. So that got outlawed. I can't see how they're going to get around that.
Yeah, it's what their site does is they don't charge you to apply for a job. What they do, it's kind of like the equivalent of, do you remember newspapers, Angela? Do you remember those things?
Yeah, vaguely.
Right. You go down and you pay £1 or whatever for your Sunday newspaper, and there are like 4 million job ads in there. Right? You could pay for the newspaper, and in that newspaper were the ads. So you weren't paying to apply to a job. You were paying essentially to use the media that had the job ad in it. And
So
that's what's
yeah.
happening.
So it's like Tinder or Bumble or whatever. You pay to go on the site,
but my point, my point isn't so much about the candidate paying versus the employer paying. My point is every candidate should be assessed using a scientifically validated system, and there are a handful of really good ones out there. Then the ones that assess well, those ones get to apply. So suddenly, instead of having 20 applications and 2 of them are good, if you did that, you would only have the 2 good ones in today's numbers. And in a year from now, you're going to knock out 200 or 1,000 unqualified ones and be left with maybe 5 good ones. If we can get to that, the candidates will get instant feedback. You're not going to have to say, hey, Angela, thanks for applying, but you didn't meet your minimum qualifications, because the assessment did that. It reverses the whole process. So I think that's exciting. Yeah.
And actually, we've got a coach in the gym, Renu Gundala, that works with us, and she has a company called Talent Grader. So we'll get that on there. So if you're not sure which assessments to do, then that's her business to help people to identify what it could be. I'm interested in your comment on Myers-Briggs. Come on, we've got to. I'm not going to let that one go. I have seen the documentary. Is this what you're referencing?
So Myers-Briggs has all the scientific validity for employment as horoscopes have.
It was the one lady, wasn't it, in her kitchen?
It's interesting. It's fun. I'm ENTJ, and I thought it was really interesting that basically means is that I have this urge to tell everybody how they're wrong for their benefit, which is really messed up. And many of the members of my family would wholeheartedly agree with that. It's an accurate assessment and completely useless to determine, am I likely to do that job well or not?
One I have come across over the last 10 years that I do like and promote is here in the UK, it's called Remap, and it's about are people going to pick up the phone? Are they going to do sales? SBQ Gold, I think, probably in the UK. I did the assessment myself to see what it was like, and it was spot on. And it took quite a while to do it. There was quite a few questions. It wasn't a quickie thing. So yeah, there are a few. Give me a couple of the ones that you like, because you mentioned there are a few good ones out there.
Yeah. So one is a company called Modern Hire. And they've gone through a couple of like mergers and acquisitions over the last 5 or so years, but very scientifically validated. You start off as an employer. The typical assessment takes about 40 minutes for the candidate to go through. And then they find pretty quickly, as candidates start to apply, that certain questions are not actually differentiators. Everybody's answering them the same way.
Right.
Well, if everybody answers that question the same way, get rid of the question.
Yeah.
And so what you end up with is usually, I think they said it's usually about 20 to 25 minutes. They recommend that the employer share the results instantly with the candidate. So the candidate can see, for example, Angela, you are not well suited to working in a sales position with our company, but you're remarkably well suited for a customer success manager. Would you like to apply to that job? Right? Maybe yes, maybe no, but you get instant feedback and get matched up with the jobs that they have. It's awesome. Another one is out of Canada, in a relatively small city near Toronto called Plum.io. They are making really big noise here. One of the really cool things, Caitlin McGregor, who's the CEO there, she shared with me is that the Bank of Nova Scotia, which is one of the biggest banks in Canada, there are like 5 banks in Canada, basically, that all of their early career candidates, what we used to call college or university recruiting, they do not apply to jobs anymore. Instead, all of them go through the Plum assessment, and the top candidates then go further into the process. And so the Bank of Nova Scotia is now assessing all of their candidates, but only the university recruiting piece is basically now no on-campus recruiting. Everybody goes through that assessment. That to me is the future.
And is that plum with a B or without?
plum.io.
As in the fruit, right? We'll get that one in there as well.
Yeah, and no, I don't get any kickbacks from them or anybody else for that.
but that is a term we use. That's a plum job for you. That's a plum candidate. It is actually. I don't know where it comes from or why, but I love the etymology of words. I'm going to go and look afterwards because you obviously picked up on that somewhere from those.
It was available on some like hosting company for $9, so
Possibly, not sure. So I'm getting the impression you're quite excited about this. We shouldn't be worried. We should be embracing this.
Yeah, and I think I can't remember. I've heard a few people basically say this. Katrina Collier might have been one of them, but I love it when there's people are saying that the people who need to be worried about AI are the people who are not embracing AI. That AI is going to come for the jobs of those who are going to resist AI. It's for those of us who are older, it's generally scarier. Our technical skills tend not to be as good. We tend to be more entrenched. I've been doing it this way for 30 years. Why I want to change, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you don't need to. But then if you become irrelevant pretty quickly, that was kind of your choice. You don't have to be a coder to use these AI products. I pay the $20 a month to OpenAI to get the professional version of ChatGPT, and so I don't get like timed out or anything like that. And it's not available in other areas of the world. But if you go to Google and you see the generative AI, ask it to write an article for you. Bing, same sort of thing. Go and say, like, write me a blog article about blah, 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 and it'll come back with like a Wikipedia kind of article. And tell me that that doesn't help you get your job done better.
Yeah, that's the main reason I've used it this year. I've probably only used it 6 times, and a lot of it is on BD webinars to say, right, what could we find? But I had to write a blog, and it just was taking me forever, and it was based on a speech that I did. So I had all of the information and the research. So I just punched all of that in. I just copied and pasted, go, right, use all of this, write me a 1,000-word blog. And what came back was brilliant. And I had to make a few edits and adjustments, but it was my information that I'd sort of plowed in, but it just meant it got done, and it was as I would have probably written it anyway. So and you can take a job description that you've been using for the last 7 years without success, plug that in and basically say, rewrite this so that it's more appealing to mechanical engineers, and it'll come back and it's going to be eye-opening. Like, wow, I guess I could have done better, and now I have. So it's going to train you in a way, isn't it? You're going to be better anyway writing them. And I love these people that are saying, okay, now do it again with a bit more humor. Oh, yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, and when I put in stuff and say, rewrite it so it's better, it always just comes back and says it is as good as it can ever be. So just like Mary Poppins, practically perfect in every way.
Every way. What a way to finish. Love that. Thank you so much, Stephen. This trip through AI and how it's affecting marketing and advertising. Brilliant. I've certainly learned a lot more. We'll get those other links in as well. So I've got Modern Hire and Plum.io. We'll get those links for everyone as well. And if you've got any questions, Stephen's LinkedIn is there in the chat. Feel free to reach out to him, and we look forward to hearing from you again. Thank you so much.
Cheers.